Happy holidays, everyone. My name is Andy Flynn. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement at Mines, grad back in 86 and also 98. And happy to be here, but welcome to November's Lunch Bunch. It's wonderful to see everyone today. And we always look forward to having new people joining our call as well as our regulars. And once again, we'll have a great program for you all today. We are shining our light on the mining engineering department today. That one, the one that put us on the map back in the 1870s. Our sesquicentennial year would not be complete without a visit from them and allowing them to share the progress going on in that department. We are thrilled to welcome Department Head Bill Zisch, a 79 grad, as well as Associate Professor and three-time Mines alum, Hugh Miller. He graduated with us back in 86, 91, and 96. So they will share an overview of the department, a bit of its history, and their vision for the future of the mining industry. Before we start, a few quick reminders. If you have a question, please feel free to use the chat or chime in and ask as we go along. All of our Lunch Bunch programs are recorded and can be accessed on the Lunch Bunch page of our alumni website at weare.mines.edu. So if you missed one, want to listen again, or would like to share the program with a friend, visit the page to access the complete archive of recordings going back to 2020 when we started this during COVID in a virtual format. So as always, if you have ideas for future speakers, we want to know about them. Please let me know or contact Ruth or anyone in the alumni office with your suggestions, and we'll do our best to put them on the schedule. With that, it's time to get started. Please help me welcome both Bill and Hugh to Lunch Bunch. Bill, take it away.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome all, and I presume that my trusty support, Hugh, is running the screen of slides for me, so I appreciate that, Hugh. Thank you. But welcome, everybody, to this Lunch Bunch. As Ruth and I and Andy and John have done this many times, but I'm now on the presenting side and glad to be doing that. Hopefully I'll give you some background to where we are in the department. Go ahead, Hugh. So today I'll just be highlighting what is going on in the department, talk a little bit about our Whistler gift and my role and our professor of practice role, give you an update on some of our programs, the enrollment, and what we are doing in research. Talk a little bit about some curriculum feedback that we have received and have made some directional changes to, and then highlight really what's going on at the Edgar and all the many activities there. So next, please. So as far as the Whistler gift was provided very generously by Steve Whistler to the department. The idea and intent of that gift was to endow a department head and a professor of practice, and in both cases, an industry connection was a strong criteria. So I'm the department head. I started all the way back in December of last year, 1979 graduate mining engineering. Spent most of my career in operations, finance, in the precious metals space, and came back into the academic side as I was a part of the Alumni Association and then the Industrial Advisory Council in the department. One thing seemed to lead to another, and Steve Enders and I had worked together, and then I started doing some volunteer work and ended up being the department head. Glad to be here. And the professor and the goals that we have relative to the Whistler investment. Next slide, please. So a very clear set of goals and objectives that came along with the gift, which is quite helpful. Number one, maintain our number one ranking in the world, our reputation. I do remind people that we will defend that, but also, and we're going to defend it because there's only one way for it to go from here. So we need to maintain that number one, and we'll do what we need to. We're looking at increasing enrollment in the graduate and undergraduate arenas, increasing our engagement with alumni, continuing to raise funds, and partnering with industry and alums. The professor of practice role is to interact with industry, with the students, do some teaching, outreach, and also indirectly to direct the Edgar mine. Our current professor of practice is George Sturgis. George joins us after more than 45 years in industry. He's been in the executive side managing projects, worked around the world in most continents most recently. Before he came to Mines as a professor of practice, he was vice president for project development with Hecla Mining and has a great deal of underground experience, which is very complementary to our other faculty members. George received his Bachelor's of Science in Geological Engineering from Mines in 1978. He's got an MBA from the Whitman School, Syracuse University, and has spent many years on the Industry Advisory Committee of the School of Mines Mining Department. So we're very pleased to have George on board. I know that the students' reaction has been very positive. They really enjoy the industry perspective, and they appreciate that. His primary roles are going to be taking care of teaching, number one. You go to the next slide there if you can. Outreach into the industry, outreach with students, and then directing but not managing. We've got a very solid manager at the Edgar Mine, Lee Fernapfel. But George is kind of directing and strategically guiding the Edgar right now. So it's great to have him on board. One of the goals I talked about with the Whistler goals is enrollment in students, undergrad and graduate. We've seen a pretty good increase in our trend right now. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Hugh. I'll talk to that one as far as this is kind of a trend. You take a look at the far right of that from about 2017 to 2023, we had seen somewhat, steady increase in both the graduate and the undergraduate levels. When Steve transitioned to me in December of last year, we had about 89 students in undergraduates in the mining department. We then moved that up to about 100 in 2023. And after this fall semester, we're currently at about 120 undergraduate students. So we've increased from about 90 to 120. Our goal based on the Whistler goals is about 150. So we're about halfway there. My personal goal is to take that closer to 200 because I think that there's certainly a big demand out there and we have the capabilities of handling that. What's quite interesting is as we start increasing the numbers, which is a good thing, we do start putting some pressure on our capabilities, both facilities and faculty. So it's not without its challenges. I do think that the trend's going to increase. Hugh and I team taught the Introduction to Mining course that's the first course that our mining engineers take within the department. When we were teaching it, we had about 35 students. The last 2 semesters, we've seen that number go up to about 50 to 52 students. So the front end of the pipeline of students is increasing. So I think we'll continue to see some improvement. A lot of people ask, why do we think we're seeing the increase? I think it's several things. One, as many of you know, critical minerals and energy and the current issues in the world all revolve around minerals and mining and the extractive industry. So I think there's some more awareness. Frankly, I think some of the parents, when they walk their students through here on campus for visits, say that, okay, maybe there's a future in mining, maybe that makes sense, and it's not as much of a deterrent from having the students kind of be willing to think about mining. Then when we get them in to the department and they go through either some orientation or introductory programs, we find that they really like it. As you that are from the mining department know, it's a pretty enjoyable place to be. Great careers, great opportunities. So I think we're going to continue to see that, and we'll deal with the increased enrollment and figure out how to work within that. But that's all kind of great news. Go ahead, Hugh. As far as the research that we are doing and where we're kind of focusing our research within the department, we've got several research centers that are focused on these kind of current issues of critical minerals, recycling, energy, clean energy, all of the issues that we know are kind of the current issues of the day, and tailings and environmental and extractive metallurgy. So we've got a very broad group of centers that are focused on research in those areas. Our safety, industry safety program is exceptional, serves a very broad group, a lot of different opportunities that we have there. So we're quite pleased with the kind of the foundation that we have for research. Go ahead, Hugh. And then kind of looking forward on where we're targeting some of our energies, both the undergrad and research and graduate programs. As I mentioned, critical minerals and recycling, mineral processing. Also in the automation area on robotics, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Strong emphasis on environmental social governance. I'll talk about that in a moment when we get into our curriculum. Looking at the full life cycle integration in mining is important. And yes, we do have some focus on space mining. That's early. It's very progressive and forward-looking, but it does attract some students into our program since we have the only space resources program around. As far as what we've done with the curriculum, before I took over the department, Steve Enders and the faculty had done a very thorough and good job of doing a survey to take a look at what are the needs, what do we need to be doing with regard to our undergraduate curriculum, what kind of product are we going to be putting out as far as students. And so there was an extensive survey that was done. Actually, I expect many of you were probably a part of that survey, but we talked to recent graduates, we talked to the hiring personnel, we talked to executives, we talked to alumni, we talked to industry representatives, and basically collected up a survey of what do people want, what do they need out of our undergraduate curriculum going forward. And one of the things that the visionaries or the executive group that we talked to strongly stressed was the importance of non-technical disciplines, whether that's critical thinking, communications, working as a team. Out of that exercise, and we actually broke things down to the topical level rather than even course level, and then we reconstructed it and put back together all the pieces. We ended up with two primary changes, two discipline gaps that we had. One was in wastewater and closure, and the other gap that we saw that was more significant also was resource conservation, sustainability, ESG, kind of the social and community side of the industry. So we built that up, put a matrix together, ended up focusing and looking at the disciplines. Where do we provide these critical thinking and communication skills, and how do we cover the content? So we made a few changes to our we will be making a few. The faculty have supported it. We're going to be moving it forward. We have to go through a process, but we're looking at adding 3 courses to our requirement for a mining engineer. One is on data acquisition, analysis, and statistics. Primary focus change there is the data acquisition. The second course we're going to be adding looks at mining and sustainability, which also helps students can use that to satisfy some of their other elective needs, but it will be a required course going forward. And the third that we've added as a required course is wastewater. And so we did a survey, identified the gaps. We've now identified the courses and our approach going forward. So we're pretty interested in that. And I think it's a complete offering that not many others have. We'll also be revising some of our courses and focusing in particular, we're looking at risk and project management, enhancing the exposure to that. And then we're taking a look at where we've typically done a circuits course in the electrical engineering. We're going to look at something to modify that to be kind of mine power systems. So we actually have a lot of moving pieces on the curriculum side. I can tell those of you who may not have been around that kind of exercise like I had not been till I joined, that there's a lot to that whole process. It's taken us quite a while, but I think we've done some real good research and a lot of thinking on how to put it together. And I'm quite excited about that we're providing a curriculum that's going to meet the needs. I'll look forward to any questions you all have or observations that you have. When, as we get done with the call today, be happy to talk about any of your thoughts and perspectives as well. Before we do that, I want to talk about the Edgar Mine. Most of you are familiar with the Edgar Mine and its role here at mines and in the mining department. The Edgar Mine is, is a unique asset that we have. The subterranean underground environment really lends itself to some unique research. And in the last 2 years, we've seen a significant increase in the demand for research space in the Edgar, and to the point where it's exceeding our ability to supply some of the space that individuals are looking for. So we'll talk here about, I'm going to talk about what is being done, what the Edgar is being used for, and then at the end, I'm just going to talk about some of the changes that we're going to make in order to meet those needs. So first of all, first and foremost, the primary purpose of the Edgar Mine, as it always has been as an experimental laboratory, is teaching, education, teaching, training of our students. That's kind of the first and foremost priority. Go ahead. That goes beyond just the mining department. Primary focus is training of mining engineers, but there are actually many other student groups and disciplines that have opportunities right now and that interact with the projects and classes. You can see the list there. I provided a lot of information in our slides here. You can go back and take a look at the details, but it's many departments that actually use the Edgar as part of their training program. Go ahead. The specific classes that we take, a lot of these are the same that any of you that graduated in mining engineering, you remember the courses in safety and in ventilation, and then in underground mine operations. So we continue to use the Edgar for all of those classes. Major emphasis on safety and operations. We do have an explosives engineering lab that teaches some classes. We still do a field surveying session in the summer. Use the mine for MSHA training and metallurgical materials, and there is some actually quantitative bioscience engineering teaching that's going on at the Edgar as well. This is just a picture of some of the research space that we are actually creating. This is for the Explosives Resource Lab, where they're going to be putting some very capable, interesting research-heavy materials underground. And so the space that we create has to meet those expectations and demands, which is the same thing we're seeing going forward as well. The research that we're doing, I'm not gonna read through everything, but there's a lot of research that's being done by departments within mines, whether that's the Petroleum Department, Geophysics. We then also work with Forest Service, do a lot of training and research, and then testing of equipment and rock bolts and LiDAR and camera testing and USGS mapping and research. So a lot of research going on at the Edgar beyond and outside of the training that we provide to our department and to other departments. We've had a continuing relationship with U.S. military for some of our the use of our underground facilities. Again, that subterranean environment provides them an opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere else. I know Lee von Opfel, our mine manager, is intimately familiar with a lot of the activities from the U.S. military when they come up to the site, but it's quite interesting. They are very appreciative and thankful for the opportunities that we can provide them, and continue to be a real good relationship between the U.S. military and what we're doing at the Edgar. And then our NIOSH training continues, has been very helpful to us and helpful to NIOSH. And the Department of Defense has several training and research programs, a lot of them focused on nuclear. So a lot going on at the Edgar in research. And I mentioned the Explosives Lab, the connections with Lawrence Livermore National Labs, Los Alamos. And in fact, just yesterday, we completed a major installation of some new equipment that will be housed in one of the drifts at the Edgar to do some more explosives research. Training, lots of training. I'm not going to go through the whole list. We work with the Colorado Division of Reclamation, the Colorado State, CSM students in the areas outside of mining, mine rescue, rappelling, and then the Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining and Safety. So a lot of training that goes on, and this is training not necessarily of our students, but of other professionals in the area. And then the Edgar has always been, continues to be strong, a strong asset for outreach. We put through about 2,000 people a year. Sometimes Lee thinks that he's a tour guide. He doesn't do most of those tours, frankly. His students do. They do a fabulous job. And we'll take through 30 or 40 tours a year in groups of 5 to 30 or 40. Focus on the K through 12 prospective students, general public, just for information. And then it's also a very good recruiting asset for us. I oftentimes run into students and ask them how they ended up in the mining department, and many of them, when they were prospective students or first year, took a tour at the Edgar and just were struck by how fun that would be to work there and learn and understand it. And we still have a lot of outreach with industry that still want to either will donate equipment, work with us, provide training. So the Edgar is a significant outward-looking asset for outreach, along with all of its education and training. Very recently, very new to mines, and some of you may have seen some of the announcements with regard to the quantum engineering that's going on, the land that the university purchased up near Arvada. That's looking at some surface facilities for quantum engineering. But there's a program that we are starting to develop for the Edgar where again, its subterranean characteristics provide a unique opportunity and critical characteristics for the work that they want to do on quantum engineering. We probably are the only institute in the country to own and operate an experimental mine that can be used for this kind of research.
No, I just like
I was going to
It's
use.
it's a great playground for advancing quantum technologies. It's shallow underground that can be accessed from the surface. As most of you know, we've got an adit rather than a shaft, so that's real convenient. And we can control the environment, and hopefully that leads to really significant breakthroughs in computational efficiency. So it's some real great environment for them with good characteristics that they've got plans that are going out 4, 5, 6 years and what they want to do with it. So we'll be coordinating that with them while again maintaining our primary focus on the education and training of our undergraduate students. But we can create space. We use student labor to increase drifts and to create open spaces. It's just kind of a fun place to educate and train everyone. So that's a lot of what's going on in the department. We expect to break ground on a new facility at the Edgar that has been funded by a very generous gift by Freeport-McMoRan, which we very much appreciate. This will be a new dry, a men's and women's dry, some office space, upgrading some utilities. We expect to commence probably closer to the end of the year. This slide's a little out of date. We're probably going to go out for bids and get started here in the December timeframe. We hope to have completion by summer of 2025. So this will be a major improvement for us at the Edgar. So that's the department. That's what we're looking at and some of our programs and responding to industry and what we see in the future. And I'll now turn it over to Hugh to talk about the real fun parts, which is the student experience and the goals that we have for our students and our student organizations. And I also want to just start out by thanking Hugh for his major efforts, as always, but it's been a long time that he's been here and has really helped us develop a very strong, practical, applied, hands-on experience for the students. So nobody better to talk about our student experience than Hugh.
Thanks, Bill. That's very kind of you. It's great to see everybody that's on this call, and many of you have contributed heavily toward our undergraduate and graduate educational activities. So thank you very much. The bread and butter, the traditional reputation of Mines in terms of undergraduate education, our ranking globally, has to do with trying to find ways to push students up higher in that learning curve. So when they get to industry, they know the right questions to ask and have a good picture of the overall industry. And so and the reason we go through the curriculum issues on a regular basis by soliciting information from industry and the constituencies that hire our kids is what can we do the better? How do we do continuous improvement? And this has been one of the major reasons we are where we are. So we've got a very strong background in engineering fundamentals. We stress on the undergraduate side, economics and professional conduct, and having a basic platform from which to build from. And then we go into blended skill sets predicated on mining, geology, processing, and all the rest of the things that go into making a solid, well-educated new engineer, and providing them a basis of being able to go into industry, regardless of the sector they decide to go into, and be prepared to learn. again, as Bill indicated, we're doing a lot of work based on input, again, from industry constituencies on issues that involve social and governance aspects of the industry. And how do we improve the ability of our students to solve problems and to critically think and understanding the types of skills they need to be able to be successful, being able to oversee contractors or being able to be a contractor themselves, but these leadership skills of working in groups. And the way we do that, for the most part, is we try to integrate learning experiences, not only through classes. Almost all of our upper division classes have labs or hands-on types of activities. And again, we are extraordinarily blessed to have the Edgar Earth Mechanics Institute, EMPSIS, and a variety of these other business units where students can get actual hands-on experience. And again, to give them ideas of what to do in the future. We do an awful lot of field exercises and field trips. We do internships and co-ops, which are vital to their understanding. And we try to do industry engagement wherever possible. And that includes bringing people here on campus, as well as through these field trips and activities like that, industry mentoring, student participation in professional organizations and clubs. And we'll talk more about that here shortly. But the overall vision is, we're trying to create memorable student experiences that enhance their ability to understand and learn, develop specific professional skill sets. And this is also one that, as has traditionally been in the past, our students enjoy a lot of these activities, and it actually draws new students into the program. So it's been a very rewarding and successful process. Some of these other experiences that we talk about is, again, we do a lot in the way of encouraging internships and cooperative experiences. Again, this is vitally important. We also have, during the school year, we have opportunities for students to engage in employment opportunities, make some money, but more importantly, it's the experience. Both up at the Edgar, at EMI, within the department itself, EMPSIS, the Explosive Research Center, and also the Kroll Institute. So there's a lot of places our students can actually develop some experiences while still in school. In addition to some of the clubs that we'll talk about here shortly, there's also opportunities for students, undergraduates, to get engaged in some research experiences. And most of the faculty will hire some undergrads for specific things, everything from mechanical excavation systems and tunneling to occupational safety, everything in between too. And so again, it's a way for students to gain experience. Student activities and clubs, the big one obviously is the SME student chapter. They're intimately engaged in almost every student function here at Mines. In addition to that, we're also blessed to be able to have the intercollegiate mining competition, which travels around the world, competing. We have student mine rescue teams. We have International Society of Explosive Engineers. We have students participating in currently in the National Stone, Sand, and Gravel Association's mine design competition. And so there's a lot of different things that can happen. And again, across the board, there's all sorts of student leadership skills that are learned as part of that. The student management group up at the Edgar has been an ideal, because the students are actually engaged in teaching activities and overseeing work crews, doing planning, all the rest of the stuff that's necessary that will help them when they get into the professional world. Field sessions continues to be an important part of of what we do in terms of the educational mission of Minds. It's not the brutal 6-week course where you hardly slept during that period that most of you remember. Today we're very much oriented toward trying to provide these great learning experiences. We've broken field session into 2 3-week activities or course modules. One occurs after their sophomore year, one occurs after their junior year. And the reason we broke it up, many of the employers hiring our students had indicated 6 weeks was just simply too long. And it's important that we provide these experiences for students, so we broke it up and lessen the impact associated with them actually going out and getting internships. Field trips, both course related and extracurricular, is still the bread and butter of what we do. It's somewhat surprising. Students from mechanical engineering or civil or geology will often ask if they can participate in our field trips because they don't get a great deal of, in the field experiences in some of their majors. So it works out really, really well for us. And then conferences and professional meetings are important to student growth. We set more than 35 students to Mine Expo. Every year for SME, we'll send almost half of our undergraduates. And then next week, we're bringing a bunch of students to AMEA, and we'll do some tours of Nevada operations as well. So all these things are cumulative and they're important and for student development. The big thing here is we couldn't do any of this stuff without, the support of alumni and constituencies. You not only provide your time and effort for a lot of these activities, but also, financial support. So again, we truly thank you for that. But also, if you have an interest in getting involved, please let Bill or I know.
I have it on external. And
everything from participation in senior design programs, involvement in co-ops and internships, speaking engagements, all of that sort of thing is vital to the development of these students. We have a seminar process that goes on weekly. And then, it's great to have Tim here. We have the Haddam lecture, which will be next spring. And last year it was Red Conger. So high level seminars. And it's truly a wonderful thing. And it's a great place for, alumni receptions and things like that normally happen at conferences, to have alumni and, again, industry people interfacing with our students. That's the good stuff. And then, of course, we have student scholarships and aid, and that's an integral part of our ability to go out and recruit students. And it's been great. All the students are getting jobs. They're getting multiple offers. And boy, there's opportunities that are becoming prevalent that are truly amazing. That's the good stuff, right? Well, thank you again. And Bill, I'll let you sign off with everybody.
Yeah, well, we can open it up for questions here. If anybody's got interest in a question that we didn't address, Hugh and or I can address it. I know I see a chat note from our friend Mr. Bennett. Wanted to know if there was a course or minor in ore dressing for smelting, separation, handling of managing and acquiring the products from the ores. And the short answer is yes, there are. They're not required courses, but there are electives. Actually, I'm wrong. We do have a mineral processing requirement now. Yeah. So there are some. It doesn't get into all the details of separation, and that's just a matter of how much time we have.
Actually, the course is taught by Eric Spiller, outstanding. Many of you know him. Also an alum who has more than 40 years experience in processing. So there's a required course that covers everything: crushing, grinding, separation. But the only categories that aren't included are hydrometallurgy and pyrometallurgy. And there are subsequent courses that students can take to get exposure to that. But it's a very, very solid undergraduate course, which has a lab attached to it.
Can you guys give us some background on social license to operate? As what we are watching is happening in Indonesia and Mali and places like that, is our ability to operate is being severely constrained. So how are you exposing students to this?
Yeah, Tim, I'll take that on. And you're right, a key question, and one of the things that was emphasized in a lot of the survey work that we did, and why we're kind of changing our curriculum to address that. One of the things we would like to evolve to right now, they'll be taking a course, a lot of them take an elective course that talks about what are the issues, what are the challenges, what are the problems with regard to community engagement and environmental issues and governmental relations. And so we touch on that, and we end up touching on it on several of the courses. The new course will focus primarily on that area. It's my hope that we can actually turn that into a case study type of approach, because I think so many of the issues that, whether you mention Indonesia or other places, are stranded assets that we see around the world. I think there's a great deal to be learned by studying, what worked, what didn't work, because we've got as many positive examples as we do negative, some that have been done better than others. So, I think number one, they're being made aware of it through a lot of the classes. I teach the intro class. We spend a couple sessions on that particular topic. But I would like to see us evolve to something that's kind of case study approach to identifying the issues, but also equipping our students with some of the solutions to those really difficult kind of social problems.
So we also, in addition to that, in addition to the Bill's insights, we also have 6 units, 2 classes that are used as part of the undergraduate experience that are general in nature. And then what we've done is we have some required humanities, social science courses, several of which now have mining focus. And then, like Bill said, in our mining courses themselves, starting with intro to mining all the way to senior design, many of our design courses now will have emphasis on, corporate social responsibility, social and political issues, ESG. So there's things that are now built in to put them into context of how we design, build, and cost out properties, and what considerations are important. How do we permit stuff? Things like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk on that one at some point if you need a guest lecture. I've been dealing with an ongoing permit application for the last 8 years in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, Garrett, that would be great.
Yeah. Those real experiences are really valuable to us, because that's where the real learning and the real practical happens.
Bill and Hugh, I see a question in the chat from Chuck who says, what are we doing about underground construction and tunneling?
Yeah, and Hugh, I'm going to let you answer that just because I'm not as familiar being new to it. But I mean, the short answer is it kind of continues as it has been. We are seeing an increased interest from industry and from outside, and actually having some discussions with folks that are very, very integral to that. But specifically, I don't know that we've made many major changes, and it kind of continues as it has been. But Hugh, you're free to correct me if I'm wrong there.
Oh, no, you're right, Bill. Thanks. No, it's still underground construction and tunneling still accounts for 20 to 25% of the career paths our graduates take. And so building on the generosity of Bruce Grucott and many others, we still maintain a relationship with civil engineering and geological engineering. And there are a number of courses that are designed that are that are heavily focused on construction and underground tunneling. In the department, our rock mechanics is an important aspect, and in fact, those other departments take rock mechanics from us. We also, the project management course has a component on bidding processes that are pertinent to underground construction. We do a fair amount within our courses, including introduction, as well as the introduction to mining, which has a construction component to it. But we also do in mine design. We have an opportunity for students to work on construction projects as well in terms of costing and design and that sort of thing. But there's lots of opportunities for students that want to pursue a career in that direction to get engaged in specific courses. And again, we have EMI, which is an incredible facility in terms of mechanical excavation and novel excavation techniques. And that there's the projects that cycle around that facility are outstanding, and it provides students with some hands-on experience. Great question.
Any other questions? I will kind of build on what Hugh said, an area that we didn't necessarily touch on. Where are our students going? Who's hiring them? And it's kind of traditional, the same as the past, although certainly coal is down. But one of the areas that is really starting to absorb a lot more of our graduates is the industrial side of things, the sand and aggregates, cements and infrastructure. We're seeing a big demand, a lot more of those companies showing up on campus to hire our students, both internships, but also for full-time employment.
That's exactly right. And metal, non-metal is still kind of the bread and butter, but we've seen a huge diversification. The aggregates and industrial minerals have grown immensely. We still place a couple, 2 to 3 students a year in coal, which is good. And then again, underground construction and tunneling. Another thing I forgot to include in that, we have a number of faculty members that underground construction and tunneling is their focus, and it's helpful to have that expertise internally into the department, and it's a good thing. The other thing we didn't really talk too much about, although it's on the slides, is the new initiatives involving waste, tailings, water, the environmental aspects of mine operations. And so that's another relatively new, last 3 or 4 years. The focus areas of our programs have gone in investigating that and also developing talent, for those kind of activities. So.
Other questions?
Anything else? Anyone else?
Might be a little bit specific, but what software packages are currently being taught?
Gary, you're right. You're going right to the heart of a major discussion we're in right now. We're real fortunate. Fred Banfield, God bless him, an alum of the department who started
MineSight,
a software company in Tucson many years ago. We used MineSight. He initially, helped pay for our computer labs, and we still use MineSight as a design software from Hexagon or Mintech now. Hexagon, we still use that as a core in many of our undergraduate design classes. But on top of that, we also do use Vulkan. MapTech has been an outstanding partner to work with. And so kids have the ability to work on that. We also use Leapfrog, we use At-Risk, we use Carlson, we use a number of other software packets. And it gets to the point where you know, AutoCAD's part of that. You know, you end up in a situation of what do you teach? Because you reach capacity pretty fast. I would love to also teach Whittle. Don't have enough time. And so we're trying to isolate what do we teach, and are the principles consistent that you could teach everything going along? Again, we get a lot of feedback, you know, from alumni and constituencies. If you have some opinions, please, we'd love to know.
Okay.
You know,
I'm
Yeah, I think
curious,
He was absolutely right. A key question. Go ahead, Rod.
I'm curious because I know the mine that's outside of Las Vegas that was being built to store nuclear waste. Is that just a dead issue or is anything happening there?
yeah, it's at this point in time, it's as of 3-4 months ago, there was a meeting in Las Vegas that it's no longer in the immediate future going to be used as a nuclear repository. They're actually, DOE is going to open it up to become a research facility, and trying to mimic some of the things that we do at Edgar. It's a huge facility, but it's in the middle of nowhere, you know, within the Nevada test site, right? So it's interesting, but we still do a lot with WIP, Waste Isolation Pilot Plant in Carlsbad. We have a lot of alums that work there, and we have a lot of synergies with them. So it's still an area that we're interested in, but it'll be interesting to see what the political environment of how that changes over time.
Bill and Hugh, you might have already mentioned this or listed it on one of your slides. So apologies if I'm repeating, but I'm curious to know what percentage of women are undergraduates currently, and how many master's and PhD students do you have? What's the breakdown on that? Bachelor's, master's, PhD students currently.
And you mean it, yeah. So I don't have that in front of me as far as the breakdown of women students and their undergrad. Many may be aware that as a STEM institute across CSM, we're at about 30%, which is pretty healthy from a STEM standpoint. In the mining department right now, we're at about 20%. It had been higher, but as we've seen this increase in students, it just so happens more of them have been male than female. So the percentage has gone down. The numbers of women in the department has increased. And I will also tell you that they are very much in leadership roles. The head of our SME chapter and vice president of that chapter are both women. We've got a rescue team of just women that won the world championship last year. So they are not necessarily the biggest in numbers, but they are mighty and they are capable. And some of them going on are really doing well in the industry. And I think one of the advantages they have is they come into our department and they get comfortable with, you know, who they are, what the role is, how does that work? And I think that they are quite successful when they get out into the workplace. As far as graduates versus undergraduates and some of those splits, we've got, is at 120 undergrad. We've got 55 master's students and about 26 PhD.
Wow.
So just building off of what Bill said, it's been great. You know, the last 8 years maybe, since well before COVID, the SME student chapters have all been women. Currently, the lead shifter up at the Edgar is a woman. Ironically, the top students in our department until last year, there was a streak of about 7 or 8 years where the top student graduating was a woman. And in fact, Caterpillar came in and started targeting women in our program rather than hiring any of the guys. And so it was kind of an interesting dynamic. But it was good that you know, it's been exceptional. We have some really, really sharp women in the program.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right,
Any other
Ruth, I'll
questions?
turn it back to you.
Okay, I do see one more question from Kendra.
Oh.
What are the other few top mining schools in the world? We're number one. Who's number two and three?
We're number one. Number two is in Australia. There's 13 mining schools left in the United States, which includes University of Arizona, South Dakota, Montana, Missouri, Reno, Penn State. I'm missing a few there, but that's where they are. There's about 13 of them in the US.
Got New Mexico.
Yep. New Mexico Tech, Virginia
New
Tech.
Mexico Tech,
Penn
sorry,
State.
yep.
Yeah.
There were, I didn't name 13 just because off the top of my head, I didn't get there.
So, yeah, so Michigan Tech, which went away, is struggling to come back, largely as a consequence of the generosity of its alums. They now have 2 mining professors, and that's a tough haul. But overall, there are a number of enrollment globally, with the exception of China, India, and Iran, and South Africa. The total enrollments, undergraduate enrollments, is declining. And even though kids are getting 100% employment and at great wages, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic of how things work. But for the most part, mines, one of the great things about CSM is that we are, from exploration all the way to reclamation, we have degree programs across the board around mineral development. And WITS is the only, in South Africa, is the only, Witwatersrand is the only other school globally that has the same approach. And so it's been a fantastic thing. But mining education, I mean, some of the schools in Mexico are dying. Canada is down some 25% in enrollment. Australia has some of the lowest enrollments ever on record. And a bunch of the big prestigious mining schools in Europe have closed. And so it's an interesting dynamic, whereas we produce about 220 graduates in the United States a year. China, produces well over 6,000. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic of how things are working.
Is the department going to get more involved with All About Mining? I know for a number of years it was a much bigger program than it is now. My sister-in-law took that in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it was a much bigger program than it is now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would help increase enrollment by teaching the teachers to promote more mining in general, but it's just a observation. We actually had this discussion last week up in Vancouver about what can we do to increase enrollment across the board for mining.
Yeah, Garrett, the real issue, and the short answer is yes, right? I still teach a class in that. The undergrads are heavily involved in SME, MEC, and then they go out to schools through the student chapter. Some of the dynamics are associated with how the competitive nature of getting into mines is. We've gone out and gone to mining areas, right? Like Gillette and Elko and a couple places in Montana, Billings, for example, to go out and try to recruit high school students to get into mines. But the problem is getting into mines is now harder than ever.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a kid from Elko that's interested in mining, but they go to a small high school that doesn't have calculus, they don't have a shot of getting into CSM. And so this becomes one of those impediments that our biggest focus in recruiting are our freshmen that are already in the institution. Great question, though.
That's
All right, Ruth.
Yeah, okay, we're a few minutes past time. Thank you all for staying on. And thank you for attending today. And huge thanks, of course, to Hugh and to Bill. Great overview. And, you know, all of us have been curious. We get questions, we run into people. It's good to know what's happening. And I would encourage all of you, if you would like to know more, or to volunteer your time, or to participate, to reach out to Bill and Hugh with all that they've got going on. It's wonderful. So thank you. This is our last virtual lunch bunch of the calendar year. We do have one more lunch bunch program next month, but it is in person. So for those of you on the call who live locally, we would invite you to campus on December let me double check the date, December 5th, Thursday. We're going to do an in-person Q&A with President Johnson. Open forum, bring your questions, bring your comments, whatever you want to share, and we'll provide lunch. So you can sign up for that on the Lunch Bunch page of our website where you signed up for this program today. So thank you all so much. This program is recorded, as you know. So if you know some folks who didn't make it on today, or if you came late and didn't hear everything, we'll be posting this recording here in the next week or so. So be sure and check back and take a listen. Andy or John, anything more for the good of the order before we say goodbye?
All good, Ruth. Got it covered. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thanks
Thanks,
again.
all. Happy holidays.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.